Check, check, check. Microphone check. Hello out there to everybody in IW and GSF world. I hope you all are having a magnificent Friday. Once again, it is a beautiful day.
It is. It's magic.
Yeah, it is magic. Once again, I am Hugh from IW. I'm here with Will Wisner, the executive director of the Grunt Style Foundation. And we are on day 38 of a government shutdown that is been negatively impacting the mental health of the veteran community. And we have seen that in IW, across IW. Since this government shutdown went into effect, we've received an unbelievable amount of email volume. I know Grunt Style Foundation has as well, with just anxiety through the roof, depression symptoms. A lot of people have found this to be a moment in which a lot of their fears are being kind of pulled out, and they're starting to see more of their fears being reflected back to them, and the uncertainty and anxiety around what the future holds. And I think a lot of people in the IW community that are on active duty or in the reserves or federal employees are getting this sense of that they're not in control. You know, I mean, that's the sense I'm getting, and it's really just a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, and if you're somebody that's, even though I understand Trump has found money to make sure and take care of the military folks, there's still all these out there. But if you're even a little bit of disruption, man, that's hard. I remember being active duty with a family, and you don't know how which bill you're going to skip this month so you can pay the bill you didn't pay last month before somebody comes and repos your car or whatever's going on. That shit is stressful, man. Yeah,
it's terrible. It's terrible. We actually got a letter from one of our local coordinators who's an officer in the military, and they basically said, hey, we need to take this seriously. The shutdown is starting to really impact mental health of service members, and he's starting to see it in the ranks. And he says that the uncertainty of getting paid and their spouses, a lot of spouses are base employees or federal employees, and they're not getting paid with no guarantee of getting any back pay. And so not receiving a paycheck and cutting back on certain things due to uncertainty poses real issues for our IW members. Veterans that rely on flights to travel and to hikes may be delayed due to flight delays and shortages, and some services on base have been delayed and turned off and decreased due to furloughed civilians. So procuring items, supplies, and services for their units and their jobs has been a challenge as well.
So it's trickling over all sorts of things, man. And these damn shutdowns have been just a fact of life for a lot of years now, where it seems like we cyclically go through this every November. It's like, oh, here comes November. We're about due for the next government shutdown, so we can do another continuing resolution to keep things going.
Yeah.
But right now, I think we're just so polarized and tribalized that this is not, it's a political battle. And unfortunately, I think inflicting pain is kind of the political games and mechanisms that are in play.
Yeah,
I think this is by design, and probably the sad part is for we are so tribalized, people are going to make sense of what's going on and mentally put that into alignment with whatever tribe they have joined. So it's almost an exercise for nothing, because
they're just doubling down.
Yeah, why are you going to inflict pain on a bunch of people, and you're not going to convert anybody to your tribe? Everybody's so damn entrenched. The left's going to be like, verification. They should just, open this thing up and let's do a real funding bill. Because I hear a lot of that talk, and people are making cases for, Rand Paul's made a lot of cases on that. We haven't passed an actual budget in a long time. And then on the right, we're just saying, hey, it's the continuing resolution. It's the same one's been passed however many years in a row. We're just holding people hostage, so who are you going to convince? The people in the middle, and they're just going to hurt,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's horrible. I think the people that lose is the American people. I think essentially both sides are in this fear mode and blaming the other for the fear that they're feeling.
That's exactly what's going on. That's the intent.
Yeah, it's just what Boone Cutler used to talk about with the fifth generational warfare, which is essentially what's at war now is the war of ideas, and we're being torn against each other by outside actors and by elite actors. Yep. And we're just seeing it more and more every day as we progress here. And I think that was really forward thinking of him to come out with that model years ago.
Yep.
And you know, another thing that's a hot topic right now in the veteran community, not just the shutdown, but the VA, you know, just announced a PTSD drug recall.
Yeah, sure did.
That's impacting tons of veterans and veterans I personally know.
Yeah, it's
and
those damn pills for nightmares is what they are. And turns out they're full of carcinogens. Well, surprise, they all are.
Right, yeah. And we'll be getting into that a little bit once we get into our next segment. We're going to bring on Derek Blumke from the GSF War Cry for Change initiative. He is an expert on this overprescription problem that we've been seeing and experiencing in the VA. Both Will and I have both experienced this overprescription of, you know, I was put on this, then I was put on that, then I was put on this. The next thing you know, I got this big Ziploc bag filled with prescriptions that I'm carrying around.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like a zombie. I feel disconnected from myself, and I had to find a way to kind of over time slowly get myself off all of these with all the intense suicidal ideation that came with all of that.
Yeah.
And to where today I'm not on any prescriptions, and I am essentially on my own mental health recovery journey. And there's a lot of different people that have helped me. And there's providers and therapists that have helped me. However, I feel like I'm back in the driver's seat, you know?
Yeah, you've done the work. And unfortunately, the nasty part of this whole story we're going to talk to Derek about here in a second, there's already 50 different ways these stupid pills will kill you. Now, to find a surprise, these things are full of carcinogens. It's almost just garnish on the plate in terms of dogpiling one more problem on top of this modality. So I guess the thing we're taking away from this conversation is I sure would like the government to just kind of stop harming us at this point, whatever way it is, whether it's continuing resolution nonsense or whether it's just take these zombie dope murder pills, you know?
We're going to help your trauma with more trauma. You're just going to get cancer now or suicidal ideation.
It's exposure therapy. Eventually you will become numb and adapt to it, and we will evolve as humans to where all of this is our normal.
When I went to the VA, I had a legitimate panic attack disorder, and I ended up with suicidal ideation after all those prescriptions. But Derek, please tell me what's new in your world. I know that you were working with the state of Michigan recently, and I also know you went to that big conference out in Nevada.
Right. So we've had a pretty interesting couple weeks here, my friends. I was out in Vegas for the MCon conference. The Invitation of Waco. They had a health summit attached to that, a mental health summit hosted by Psych Armor. And I was invited to join a panel talking about innovative solutions to veteran mental health and suicide prevention. And I think we kind of stole the show as it relates to this larger conversation of overprescribing medications, veteran suicides.
I agree.
And it was really refreshing because like we're starting to be a little bit more direct. And I've been kind of joking a little bit, but not. But like since I've got this brain tumor diagnosis recently, I'll watch the film. Yeah, I'll turn over to you. But
we're gonna play the sound here, Derek.
Okay, do it. Yeah, go ahead.
We're just getting it queued up.
Right.
Well, Derek, answer me this while we're waiting on our tech stuff to kind of catch up to where the momentum is. It's been my observation over several of these types of things that we have done, promoting your effort on the War Cry for Change. There's so many people that I would expect to be familiar with these issues, and none of them seem to be. It's almost like you're explaining the sky is blue and water is wet for the very first time. And was that the case at MCon too, or were those people already passingly familiar? And even whatever the case, after those conversations are had, what's being, what movement does that put into play?
I would say I was surprised by the reaction by some folks in attendance, and that some of the folks that are kind of like more of the traditional mental health industry, veteran mental health industry space, when I called for the removal of the APA from running via mental health, I was surprised at the head nodding that I was getting from my panelists and from those in the audience. Like it seems now that there's an open admission that we have a major problem going on, and the people that have been running mental health for VA for the past 20 years, even going back to 1946, when we initially created mental health programs at the VA. It's been the APA, former presidents, chief medical officers, leaders at the state and national levels of the American Psychiatric Association running the show. And when you have a group of people that don't focus on psychotherapy or other modalities and their only tool in the toolbox is medications, that's going to be the what we're going to be doing for mental health. That's what we're going to expect to see VA wide. And so when I called for putting the heads of the VA's whole health program to lead and run the show for VA mental health, it was like almost an applause. Like people were just like, yes, absolutely. Because we're recognizing that this one size fits all approach to mental health is not working. It's causing adverse outcomes. We're not seeing the metrics that we should expect to be seeing, which is decreased suicide rates, better qualities of life for our vets and their families. And instead, we're seeing, again, like we saw in the Wall Street Journal, these drug cocktails. And so I think we might be looking good for that video. So I'll turn it over to David to pop that up for us. But I think largely this is being accepted
Grace
now.
or her colleagues running VA mental health and replace the APA from running the VA mental health. Because right now the American Psychiatric Association runs VA mental health. All the chiefs of VA mental health are current or former senior leaders at either state or national level of the American Psychiatric Association. For the past 10 years, the American Psychiatric Association, alongside their colleagues at the VA, have been killing legislation on written consent. There's been bills written and drafted 3 previous times, and each time the APA has involved themselves and killed legislation that would have required written consent to VA-wide.
Wow. That's really, really, really powerful. You know, one of the things that I found the most fascinating when you and I were in DC and we spoke to the director of VA suicide prevention, and she said when we brought up some of the examples of suicidal ideation from SSRIs, which I've personally experienced and you've personally experienced, when we brought that up, her response was, that's only been proven in studies about teenagers or adolescents. Do I look like a teenager or an adolescent to you?
Depends on if you shaved or not. Right now, you're looking
Yeah,
with that
you do have a
beard.
cute little baby face. You do, baby
I
face.
could
It's
see how
nice.
they could mistake you
It's
for
kind of
you're a
scruffy
handsome
right
guy,
now.
Fair
man.
enough.
You're
Fair
fairly
enough.
young. But no, that's how is that a thing?
Yeah. Again, it goes to misinformation and poor education of providers and our clinicians. So, like folks in going through social work or PhD programs to become psychologists, when they're going through that training, they're told, do not talk about medications. This is not your lane. And they're actively deterred from even discussing anything at all about medications. That is a psychiatrist or doctor's job. And so what we're seeing is that one, the social workers and psychologists out there have no idea. So who the people we're talking about here, Hugh, is our psychologists. So they have no idea because they haven't been digging into this. I don't really find that as a good excuse, because if you were the executive director of suicide prevention and you're aware that there's an issue going on, you have a duty to report it, to talk about it, and to being addressing it in the VA suicide reports. And unfortunately, that's not what we've been seeing.
It's not even mentioned. How long is that report that they don't even mention the fact that, I mean, all the other, so I did multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I've got a ton of buddies I stay connected with, and almost all of them have experienced suicidal ideation from this cocktail of prescription medications that they're given by the VA. We joke about it when we go on hikes together. It's an open thing, yet it's not mentioned once. And how long is this report?
It's been going on. They've been doing these annual reports on veteran suicides by the VA since about 2012, I believe, 2011,
And how many
2012.
pages is it?
They vary, but anywhere between 30 and more commonly now 80 to 120. And in a 100-page document, you're not finding, you can keyword search through and not find the word antidepressant, psychotropic, psychiatric drug, benzodiazepine, any psychiatric drug mentions
There's
ever.
got to
And
be there has to be a coordinated effort to intentionally disguise that, because there's no way that I'm joking around with all these random buddies from all these different tours of duty. And all of us know about this, and we all have access to handguns, and we all have a high level of initiative. And when you put suicidal ideation together with firearms and high levels of initiative, you know, and if we don't understand that it's occurring because of the pharmaceutical and we think that it's real, I mean, I think that is a major, major, major issue here.
Well, we're going up against a systemic issue. You know, my friend John Grady, a friend of the foundation, and Slap Happy Hemp, is a big supporter of Irreverent Warriors and all the things that we do. He has an interesting post on Facebook today. I may reshare that or share it over to the page directly.
He's known for spicy. He's known for spicy posts.
Yeah, well, he is, but this is a report from the 1975 marijuana report to Congress, and in 1975. The folks that had compiled the scientific paper for Congress lays out all of the benefits on the endocannabinoid system and all the ways that it's helpful and all the promise that it has for cancer and all this stuff.
What?
Yes, this was 1975. And it's interesting to me because we're now just now getting to the point where we're starting to repeat some of these same things through new studies.
50 years later?
Yes.
50 years of people dying and being addicted to opioids?
Yes, and this is coming. You know, that's why I'm saying it's systemic. It's it's like the allegory of the cave, right? If you're trapped in the cave and the guy's behind you and he's shining the torchlight or the lantern light through the little silhouettes to make the puppets on the wall, you believe that is your reality. You will argue that that is the reality of how things are. And when the one guy escapes the cave and figures out what the real world is and comes back and tells everybody else, he has to evangelize and be an apologist for reality to get people that are still trapped in the cave and insistent that those shadows on the wall is the real thing. That's what I think is happening here.
Yeah. Like we're just trapped in this space of pharmaceuticals are safe.
They're clinically proven.
And then we're told marijuana's, the devil. And it's like maybe it turns out that like neither one of those is, that they're flip flopped. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy.
Look at what you guys just said. The lady you were talking to at the conference and saying, well, the reports say that is what I see as the trap here. Because if you're saying, hey, we know that cannabis or psychedelics or whatever these other things are, that might be one among many of other alternatives of ways to approach this problem, they're going to tell you, well, there's no clinical scientific proof that these things do this thing. Therefore, we do have scientific proof through these psychotropics and all these other means. Those are tested. Never mind the fact that there's problems with it. We're going to find a way to minimize that and put it in the best light so that we can continue to engage and do something. But because there's nothing there to study, we have no studies, we can't say anything other than it's anecdotal. Well, okay, we're back to the systemic problem, because why are there no clinical studies done on these other modalities?
Who controls those studies?
Well, the FDA.
Who pays for them?
That's the thing, right? So if it's the marijuana, for example, let's just use the one example because there's tons there that could load into it. Marijuana is a Schedule I drug. So that is going to
Doesn't that mean there's no clinical?
Correct.
To become a Schedule I, there has to be no clinical or medical use for that.
There's no medicinal value, no reason. Yeah. So
I don't even know how that's possible.
Well, it's not been studied. That's the trap, right? If you have to study it to get it.
But you said this report in 1975 it studied it. You're saying.
Well, that was I don't know the details on it. I don't know what studies were done. I doubt they were formal clinical studies. It was just somebody had put together some briefing for Congress. But anyway, it's the same data. It's the same conversation you and I are having right now. The problem is this: no one is going to be able to fund a study or will fund a study on a Schedule I on a modality that they cannot patent. Right. So that means they're not going to be able to recoup their investment on the back end. So I'm not going to invest $1 billion, pay the FDA $1 billion, and get all the licensing requirements for my entire staff, who each individual person taking part in those studies also has to have the same type of licensure and clearance and go through all the rigmarole.
Unless you can trademark it.
Yes. So, would you spend $1 billion to get a product that is a plant that you can't patent, that any of your competitors can spring up? You're just going to put yourself out of business.
Yeah,
right?
because there's no profit.
Exactly. There's no way to profit on it, so no one's going to engage in the study. Well,
Brilliant.
then you come, and I'm sure Derek can probably tell us because I don't know the number off the top of my head, but there's a very large portion of the funding of the FDA in terms of research that are coming from the pharmaceutical companies. So those are the only people that can pay to play into the game to begin with, and this is also the reason why when you do see clinical studies on things like psilocybin, and even weed, they're only studying synthetics. Why is that? Well, because once that efficacy emerges, even if it's on a synthetic molecule,
They can control it.
they can control it, they can profit on it. So when the legislative language hits within the state legislature, because we've seen this play out here in Missouri. Well, we have this proof that says this now. Well, okay, let's start this next phase, but we can only use this synthetic. Well, why can we only use this one synthetic? Well, because that's the only one that's been studied. Well, yeah, but you're just adding one molecule of carbon to a mushroom. It's literally the only difference. Well, that may be so, but we know that one works. And if we
Brilliant.
go with the
and that's
natural
the only one you
stuff,
can use
that's right,
because that's the one that
because we don't know what the effects will be if we use the actual natural mushroom. We may have cats sleeping with dogs. The rain may fall from the earth to the sky, and everything comes unglued.
risk.
This is the bullshit illusion that we're living in.
It's a
folks.
fear-based model.
It is
it's
absolutely
a fear-based.
that.
Yeah. So we just took Derek on a ride there.
Sorry, Derek.
yes. Derek, tell us more about Michigan and about MCON.
Well, I'd add that there seems to be a shift of the tides on this. This issue is starting to become bipartisan, and I think the big takeaway from MCON was that many people are starting to admit, like, we have a problem here. Whereas
Nice.
a year ago, where we were first started to bang the drum here at the foundation, close to 2 years ago, it was kind of like us against the world. And really, I think that is becoming less of the case. I've got very senior level Democratic members of the government here in Michigan that are saying, you know what, this is a problem. This should not be political. Just because Bobby Kennedy's talking about it does not mean that this issue is not real. And what we have is a dynamic where people are starting to admit we have an issue going on. And I think as we go forward, we keep going to these mental health conferences. I think we're going to start seeing speakers and panelists who are not really focused on this issue, who have avoided this thing like the plague for years. I think we're going to start seeing them being afraid of not talking about this. Because if you're not talking about this issue, I think it's throws your credibility as a mental health expert, quote unquote, to be driving this conversation. And so if you're not talking about this, and this is coming up from people in the audience, and it's not coming from the doctors or the PhDs at the think tanks and at the VA or at NIH or NIMH, if it's not coming out of their mouths, people are going to start looking at them like, I can't trust you if you're not talking about this problem. And I think that's where we're getting. And it's been really cool because for a long time, we did not get that reaction. We were not getting the support. We'd get stupid arguments. We'd get stupid responses. Informed consent, for example, the first argument that we heard back from VA mental health leaders was, we can't, if we told the patients all the risks of all the side effects of all these medications, they might not take their medications. Well,
Right.
yeah, you're exactly. And that's the problem, is that when you say that and you hear that, and if you actually just slow down and listen to what they're saying, you're like, wait a minute, that's informed consent. So wait, but you want informed consent, but you're not supporting actively doing real informed consent. And so that's where we're at.
Because they know what's best for you, Derek.
Yeah.
Well, they're defending the ugly baby, man. They have the world's ugliest baby, and they have to act as apologists for it. That is why this woman, whoever she may be, that told you that at that conference, that is why she resorted to going back to. I mean, how nonsensical is that? My God, you have a veteran saying, "Hey, this is my personal experience, and this and this and this," and we have all this other work.
More than that,
and they tell you it's only for children. So it says the studies.
Yeah, and we actually had Brian, the father of a veteran who took his life from suicidal ideation caused by VA prescribed medications, and she said it, and he was in the room as well when she said it. And it was
I'm sure that went over like a lead balloon.
She said that's only been proven for adolescents and teens, you know?
I'm sure.
Do I look like an adolescent?
Well, Brian's not one to shy away from a rumble. Did he address that?
Brian, I think he redirected the entire conversation of the conference through what he shared with Abson. Yeah. And unfortunately, we shouldn't have to have families doing that, because like every time they go out there, like this is a re-traumatization of losing their child, and I don't think we need to continue to do that. But to what you kind of mentioned there, the other part of the pushback that she'd shared was not just that, oh, there's not evidence for this, which there is lots of evidence, and it's not just under age 24 for where the box warning is. There's an increased risk for most of these medications, and it's not just under 24 adolescents. But the other part, if you heard towards the end, she'd also shared that another common argument, which is in a little bit of a different vein, which is less of the corruption, less of the when I say corruption, I mean like poor training or deliberately not training clinicians on this in medical schools, was that she shared, well, it's important that we don't stigmatize these medications because they help a lot of people. And I'm one of those people because I'm on one of those medications. And
it's like, no, like you're in the damn demographic that's on the placebo effect. You just happen to be outside of the window of the percentages that it negatively impacts.
Yeah. And it's not that, and this is not an attack on her at all. This is just a lot of people who are on a medication, like some of these mental health medications, or their child's on one of these medications. That's where we can find some of the most vehement pushback. But when you start talking and having a real conversation, and you start sharing how some of these medications came to market, talking about persistent sexual dysfunction or PSSD, where some people who are on SSRI, their libido is permanently destroyed, no sexual function. For some, it's coming back to them later, years and years later. But just those as examples, they don't know. And so even those who are really quick to defend or push back or fight is not because they're trying to be a jerk or because they want to diminish the experiences of families like the Brumfields, or the Millers, or the McDaniels. It's because that they do believe fully that this thing has been saving their life or has been positively impacting them. And I wouldn't argue that their experience, like if that's their experience, that's their experience. And I wouldn't call for removing these drugs from market. What I would say is that if you're an American and you know the risks of drinking alcohol or eating total crap food all the time, you can make those decisions. And the same thing with these medications. And so just as long as people are properly informed, I have less of a problem. It's more of that people are not informed at all right now. And so,
I should know the risks. When I have a panic attack disorder and I ask for the VA for help and they put me on things that cause suicidal ideation, I just need to be aware that what you're putting on could make things a lot worse. And when we think about that, you know, there's this huge PTSD drug recall right now, massive, for prazosin, right?
Prazosin,
and this is prazosin, and this is apparently widely prescribed by the VA for sleep disturbances, and widely prescribed for PTSD. And there's a massive recall, apparently.
Right. So this is not a full-out recall on a drug that has been to market for 20 years, and then all of a sudden we find out that it's creating heart attacks and strokes. What we're seeing with this issue is there's a contaminated batches, probably through several manufacturing facilities, whether the generics or from the primary manufacturer, where the chemicals, the medications were tainted with some cancer-causing chemicals, or which I read up on this earlier, was that sometimes when they're improperly stored, it can also result in these chemical compounds coming together. And so what we're seeing with that recall is, I think where I'm concerned is that that they make sure they get the medications back out to those veterans at the VA and anybody else who's been prescribed these meds, because as we know, a lot of medications can have adverse events when you're going through withdrawal, especially acute withdrawal. So if
Yeah, talk us
580,000.
about, and the word for that is akathisia. Is that correct?
Right. Correct. So akathisia, and we just had a training on this. That's what we had here in the state capitol here in Michigan just on Wednesday, where we had MIST, which is medication-induced suicide in memory of Stephen Dolan. Uh, uh, they train on akathisia. That's their whole focus, is educating the public on akathisia, and that is that acute experience one can have when you just do a cold stop from many commonly prescribed psychotropic medications. This most specifically is directed at psychotropics. And then it also people who just have a bad reaction to the medication. I had I got to talk with Christina Kaiser with MIST while she was here. She helped to run that training, and she lost her 19-year-old daughter. Uh, she'd been prescribed Zoloft. In a matter of a month and a half, this young woman went from 0 milligrams to I think 175 or 100. And then in 2 days, the doctor ramped her to 200 milligrams of Zoloft. And when Christina told me that her daughter Natalie had been prescribed that much, that high of a dose, I told her that the highest dose that I was at 150, and it was briefly because my body was not tolerating it well. And so while I was on that medication, I was pretty much at 100 milligrams the entire time I was on Zoloft. Christina is probably 5 foot nothing, maybe slightly better than nothing, slightly better than 5 foot nothing, but not much. And she said that her daughter was just tiny and smaller than her. And I
Oh
was
my
just
gosh.
crushed. Yeah. Like, so this girl is probably half my size or damn near. And was given
On double the
basically
dose.
double the dose that I was on. And yeah, and she took her life. And I'm not going to
That's
share all the
horrible.
details with the audience here because that's Christina's story to share. It doesn't sound like she shared as much with
So,
everybody else as you did with me, but just horrific. And so it's this out of body experience nearly. It's bolts of lightning hitting you in the head is one of the things you can experience. Black blips of time vanishing with those lightning bolt strikes. Paranoia to the point where, for me, I believe the drug industry had a hit on my life. At the time, I was barely employable or unemployable and homeless. And so, like, there was not a chance in the world the drug industry cared about me whatsoever at that time. Today, who knows? Different world, different times. But like, these are the experiences: paranoia, bolts of lightning hitting you in the head, feels like cockroaches for some crawling underneath your skin. Like, this
and
is what.
suicidal ideation, right? I mean, what
So,
I experienced was just intense, like,
yes,
I need to take action right now to end all this.
this restlessness that I have to make this stop. I have to make this stop right now, and
Is
that's what it is.
Derek, is this drug that they're recalling right now? And I'm assuming, but rather than assuming, I'm going to ask you as our expert: does this pill, this particular medication, if someone were to suddenly stop it, is this a possibility? What we're talking about for those that are using this particular pill?
I don't know because I'm not as familiar with drugs that are off-label prescribed for mental health conditions. I've been primarily focused on the psychotropics, specifically the drugs that have been created, approved by the FDA, and marketed for depression, anxiety, panic disorders, attention deficit, those things. And so, but what we do know is that this is a blood pressure drug. We do know that you don't want to make abrupt changes with a blood pressure drug for all of the
Right.
reasons that you would intuitively think, right? And so I'm not familiar whether this could induce akathisia, but it could induce other symptoms, I suspect, as well, none of which are good. And I think the bigger question is, are we really looking at these medications being prescribed, like blood pressure medications, as an example, for off-label use? Are we smart enough on this? Do we know that these drugs really work for those issues that are being prescribed?
Right.
Or is it just another example of, oh, I'm a doctor. I have the abilities to prescribe anything that I want, anytime that I want. And
Well, they
here
don't
you
have
go.
to follow this. They don't have to follow the studies if they're in the driver's seat, right? You
If
only have to follow the studies if you want to introduce something new. But
Yes.
if you want to use
if
something in
they're
a
a
way it's
doctor,
not,
they can do whatever they want to do. Yeah.
if they want to use something in a way where it's not meant to be used, you know.
Well, let's just examine and play with this for just a second. Let's pretend that this is a blood pressure drug. We don't know if this is going to have the same type of sudden withdrawal type symptoms and going into the akathisia. Let's just say that that's a given, that that's not the case. So the blood pressure, people that are on it for blood pressure can receive a different blood pressure pill. And so that's a fairly simple fix. You may have the whatever problems associated in the time between your cessation of the one drug and starting of the new drug. But for those people in the VA, that the VA is giving this for treatment of off-label for PTSD, let's assume that there is no akathisia component to that. But would not that stand to reason that these care providers are going to, the prescribers at the VA are going to contact all of these veterans that were on this pill to say, hey, there's this recall, and now we're going to put you on some other pill to make up for that, which then would lead back to a situation where the tendencies and the black box warnings do manifest, and if they do get off that pill, then they do get into akathisia.
Yeah, I mean, they could be switching them out from this onto something that again exacerbates and makes things worse in the long run. But a lot of these, you know, like when I was first put on some of these meds, like Lexapro and Prozac and Zoloft and stuff, it worked for a couple months. You know, it really gave me some relief. It was like crutches. You know, it was like really, you know, I had a broken leg, and it really, really helped. And it was only over time when I really started to experience a lot of the major problems. So, and I think a lot of folks experience that. They're like, oh, I finally have relief. I'm not having panic attacks anymore. Right. You know, and then all of a sudden, like 6 months later, you miss a couple pills because you're on a vacation. You start having suicidal ideation when you're on the beach. It's know very disorienting.
Yeah.
But we spent a lot of time talking about the problem here. Let's talk about one of the solutions. I know that the Ohio State University recently did a study, and they just did a study with veterans, and they've released some of the information about this study, and it shows overwhelmingly that veterans are reporting that they're benefiting and healing mental health using psychedelics, which is fascinating. Most of the studies we've seen at this time are coming out of the VA, and I wouldn't say that they're really painting a super bright picture about the future of psychedelics for a lot of the reasons that we've been talking about. But here in this Ohio State University study that just came out, 85% of veterans reported that they benefited and healed mental health issues using psychedelics. And I think this is great information to have as we in the veteran community continue to talk to folks from the VA and folks in our day-to-day lives, like our families who are uneducated on the benefits, and they've been told their whole lives that psychedelics are the devil and psychedelics are evil and psychedelics cause harm, right? And it actually turns out that in a completely independent study, separate from the VA, separate from any pharmaceutical company, separate from any political organization, veterans are overwhelmingly 85% reported they were benefiting and healing their mental health using psychedelics.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a goal posting, moving kind of a situation. You know, every time we have something that's positive that comes up on it, that's a win, and we have to continue to get more and more research, on that. It's just how long and drawn out is that process going to be before they bleed that stone dry and things settle into what we hope is inevitable. There's a lot of time going to be between that date to the other. And then for all those other reasons, there was a study in 2016 that was from the University of Windsor up in Canada that showed that dandelion root extract kills 95% of cancer cells, targeting cancer cells and destroying them. Now, this is in a petri dish, right? And while the other cells that are not cancerous remain, unharmed. Because right now our problem with chemo is it just kills all the cells, right? Most people, they go down that road or have problems with the chemo ultimately, as opposed to even the cancer. So they moved it into rodent. They're doing clinical trials with mice, and they found the same results with this dandelion root extract. Well, this is the root of a weed that's in your yard.
But you can't patent a dandelion.
And so, well, that's where you get into it, right? Because there is no clinical trials on it, and who's going to pay to do clinical trials. Now, this isn't even a Schedule 1. This is a dandelion route. Who's going to put that time into it to study the route? So it's kind of the same damn problem. And that was 9 years ago. How many people may have had benefit from, exploring that as an option when else they're out of hope elsewhere? When something like, because I'll tell you what, dandelion root healed my kidneys. I'm here to testify for that. That's purely anecdotal. I didn't go through a clinical test on it, but I'll tell you what, my kidneys were in horrible, horrible condition, largely impacted by my 800 milligrams of Motrin, change your socks and drink water that the Army had me on for 20 years to cure all of my ailments. Dandelion root restored my kidneys.
Wow.
True story.
Wow. Well, if someone can find a way to profit off of it, there'll be a bunch of studies, and we'll know the truth. But
I'm just going to go to my front yard and pull up dandelion roots and just drink my tea, man.
What probably happened is that study came out.
Sounds like it's going to taste like shit. Let's just be real. It's going to taste like shit.
Yeah, just put a little honey in it, man. Just put a little honey. You're good.
Yeah.
Honey and dandelion. There we go.
It's funny. I think the planet has a lot of options for healing us in a lot of ways that have been overlooked because we like to think that we're smarter than everything else on this planet. But, we like to learn things the hard way here in humanity. Derek, thank you so much for joining us and talking to us today about the overprescription problem in America. We will continue to look for you, your material, blogs, articles, and the talks that you give on War Cry for Change with Grunt Style Foundation. Thank you so much. And we were going to jump into Irreverent Warriors events. What do we have upcoming? I'm here to plug the IW 5K, the IW Virtual 5K, and some of the chapters are doing physical 5Ks this weekend. Ours is tomorrow at noon at Four Brothers. And we are going to be all getting together and doing a little fun run. But if you want to do it on your own, if you want to skateboard your 5K, if you want to bicycle your 5K, if you want to walk your 5K with your 10 dogs, if you want to get pulled behind your dogs on rollerblades, everything is acceptable. Just go to our website, look for our events in November, and you will find the IW Virtual 5K. And so you can sign up. You can sign up as an individual. You can start a team, whatever you want to do, but get in on it now. IW Virtual 5K, all the swag is listed on the website of what you will earn. As you raise $50, as you raise $100, you earn all these different items from IW if you're interested in having a bunch of merchandise and swag that you can only get exclusively through the Virtual 5K.
Super cool.
Yep.
What time is the show kickoff tomorrow? Four Brothers.
Noon. Well, yeah, 11:30 is when we're going to get there, but yeah, noon.
It's a fairly short hike too, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what I have yet to book my flight to DC tomorrow because of reasons, but
you got something going on in DC next week. Tell us about it.
Well, we're going to be hiking with the IW folks as well as part of the National Veterans Parade that is in DC on Sunday, and we are going to be spending some time there with the Spartan Pledge that General Michael Flynn will be administering at that event, and then we will be marching in respectful memory and honor of our dear friend Boone Cutler. So that's going to be happening in D.C. on Sunday.
Wonderful. R.I.P. Boone. Yeah, absolutely. If you're anywhere around the D.C. area on Sunday, we'd love to see you there. And we've also got on Sunday here in St. Louis, we're doing our big Afghan barbecue where we have Afghan refugees that got out during the evacuation. They actually cook for veterans in the St. Louis community, and they love to do it. These Afghans, they look forward to this every single year to be able to thank and give back to U.S. Armed Forces members and veterans.
It's a super cool community, and I know you've been involved in that issue in a lot of ways outside of the foundation. That predates your time here on it. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that work? Because if you want to, I know that's deeply inspiring to me. Sure. And what haunts me from that damn war is those guys that we left behind. I think that's total bullshit.
Yes, absolutely. And we've still got 33 guys who have approved immigrant visas that are stuck in Afghanistan.
How do you get them out? What's the possibilities there?
You got to negotiate with the Taliban. Which I don't have any connections like that. But
don't we have any credit for all the money and equipment we left behind? We can't sum zero that somehow.
Well, we took away all their money. I think their money's all frozen in the banking system now because we turned off the money for the Taliban. But Yeah, there's 33 folks that served with me in Helmand River Valley that have approved special immigrant visas, and they're not here. But the good news is we ended up getting about 70 folks over here with their
Nice
families.
work, man.
Yeah,
Nice work.
and I was lucky because I was embedded with the Afghan army, and I had a lot of contractors reporting to me. So I had a lot of contracts where I was authorized to recommend these guys for special immigrant visas. They fought with us against the Taliban.
That's right.
And then we just left them behind. And during the evacuation in the couple of years prior, or couple of years after, we were able to get a ton of guys
Dude,
out of there.
We need to get more stuck in on that, man. We need to start putting some elbow grease and start rattling cages with the Missouri reps and bring them here.
Yeah, we got 33 guys that are still stuck there, and they have
not
hope.
Insurmountable.
Yeah, it's not. They have hope every single day that at some point they're going to be able to get on a flight and come here. And they fought. Some of them worked for the U.S. military for 10 years fighting the Taliban, and then of course,
great risk to themselves.
Great risk to themselves. And nowadays, the way the Taliban treats anybody who worked with the U.S. governmental forces, they're not necessarily executing them anymore. They kind of grabbed all the guys they wanted and tortured and executed them. But these kind of lower level guys, like the guys that were under me, they're basically not allowed to have a job.
Right.
So they're just starving.
Yeah.
Because there's a famine right now in Afghanistan.
Right.
So
it's almost like they have a budget crisis going on in Afghanistan, and they haven't passed their continuing resolution, so nobody's getting paid. Well, wait, that's here.
But unemployment's like 90% there, and basically, if you worked with the U.S. military at all, then you're not really safe to engage in going to the hospital or working with the police or really doing anything.
Right.
You're basically blacklisted. So it's just whenever we can get those guys out, whenever they can get out, get past the border into Pakistan and get to the embassy. We even had a guy recently that escaped from Afghanistan, went to Pakistan, went to the U.S. embassy. They were supposed to schedule an interview to get him a flight. They have to interview him and then actually give him his visa that he's already been approved for, and then get him his flight over here. They're so backlogged with this that his date for an interview was 6 months out. And so then the Pakistani authorities rounded him up and deported him back to the Taliban. So they locked him up and then turned him over to the Taliban.
Yeah, that just doesn't seem right.
It's horrible. I figured, once you get out of Afghanistan, you're going to be safe in Pakistan. Wrong. Yeah. The Pakistan's just going to give you back to the Taliban.
They have government too, and the government's here to help.
And getting off of that topic and moving on, we've got Huntington Beach coming up this weekend. We've got a big hike on the West Coast, California, Huntington Beach. Fantastic. See us there. Silky's hike on Saturday. And then next week, we've got the IW Mexico trip going on, and a lot of folks from IW are headed down there. So that'll be a fantastic get-together during the cold months. And, that's what we have going on in IW land.
Man, it's a lot going.
Yeah.
Is there still a lot of stuff going on in December? Because I know we're talking about getting into the cold periods of the month. A lot of activity tends to die down in IW land. And I know we are taking a different approach at that here in St. Louis for next year's hike, aren't we?
Yes. January, we're doing the IW Silkies snow hike here. It's the first one ever. It's going to be here in St. Louis on January 10th. Come join us. And in December, Texas, Nevada, and Florida all have hikes. And in January, the only one is St. Louis.
That's going to be a cold guy, or it's going to be a nice day one because it's Missouri. It could be 56 degrees, or it could be 20 degrees below zero. If it's cold and nasty, are you still going to hike?
Yes, we're going to wear ski masks. We're going to wear snow pants. We're going to put our Silkies on top of the sweatpants. We're going to go hard no matter what.
We're going to channel some 10th Mountain Division hiking stuff up there, baby. I like that.
That's right. Yeah, there's going to be there could be just 20 of us, and I don't care. We're going to do it because last year in January, 4 people in our community died by suicide.
Yeah.
4 people.
Yeah, it doesn't stop, man, just for the weather.
Yeah. So, but anyway, Ending on that note, come join us for the Silkies hike. It's no hike. Come freeze your bells off.
It's our Friday doom and gloom live
the
stream.
doom and
today.
gloom live stream.
So-
Yeah, where's all the humor and camaraderie?
Well, this is how we feed the thought cannon for going to right all these wrongs.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it, man.
Yeah. We just gave everybody a cold plunge, a mental cold plunge.
That's good. I'm
Yeah.
hoping it sticks, man.
Hey,
I'm hoping it sticks.
have a wonderful weekend. Whatever you do, make sure you do something for yourself. Pamper yourself this next week. Veterans Day, Marine Corps birthday. I'm going to the ball on Saturday night. Make sure you take care of yourself and make sure that you do something on your own for you, because Veterans Day is about you. Thank you for your service. Thank you so much for being a part of the IW community and the Grunt Style Foundation community. We are out there in front breaking the status quo in order to find a better way to heal for American veterans and veterans across the world. We'll learn from that. So we're leading the world, Will.
I know.
All
I know, right? Enjoy, happy birthday, because I'm not going to see you before that. I know this is a huge thing for all you Marines. You guys go crazy every year for the birthday. Where did that tradition start, by the way? Why are you guys so fanatical about birthdays?
From the beginning. From the beginning, it was like, we're just going to have a cake and we're going to cut it with this crazy Marine Corps sword, and we're going to have the youngest take a bite and then the oldest Marine in the room take a bite, and we're all going to beat our chests and knock our heads together.
Good. We need more of that, man.
Yeah, it's very Viking. It's very Viking.
That's
very tribal.
That's what keeps the spirit alive, man. We got to keep a hold of that warrior culture.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, nobody in the Army gives a shit or even has a clue when the birthday is. We're completely befuddled and confused with the Marine Corps' tenacity with it. So good for you guys, man. Happy birthday, Marine Corps.
We're stubborn, man. We're a bunch of stubborn bastards. All right. Well, thanks everybody, and thanks for joining us.
Stay waxy.